Good afternoon, class. How are you? Bye. Okay. So as we focus on writing essays, as I mentioned, it is important to be able to write essays, whether it is for poetry, for short stories, for novels, for drama, or even when you go for practical life, you will be required to write essays or reports. Slight difference between writing a report when you are working and writing an essay, especially if you go to college and university, there are certain protocols for writing essays, and it is up to you to understand from the rubric or the prompt of the question, what type of essay are you going to use? Is it like argumentative, descriptive, opinionative, or compare and contrast? So let's have a look at the compare and contrast essay. What are the requirements, what you need to bear in mind, and what you need to focus on. Okay, just let me skip the advertisement. Okay, let's go here. Okay.
That I created for reading, comparing, or compare and contrast essays. So now I'm actually going to go into talking about essay structures, which a lot of you requested for. And comparing is also known as compare and contrast. So if I interchange between the two, then please don't worry. So we are covering essay structures, as you know, and if you like this whiteboard style, then give it a thumbs up. So generally there are three main types of essay structures in regards to compare and contrast essays. What exactly are they? Let's find out now. I'm going to be using the books Great Gatsby and Macbeth as a comparison. If you're not studying these books, it's completely okay. You should still be able to understand exactly the procedures I'm going to outline ahead. So, essay structure 1. Let's do this. This structure is quite popular and you may know it, and it is known as a block structure. So what exactly is a block structure? So the reason why this is called a block structure is because it's literally placing your texts and discussing them in blocks. So I'm just going to write down paragraph 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 on the left-hand side so that it's clearer for you how this would look like in an essay. So if our first text was to be on The Great Gatsby, then we'd spend majority of the first half speaking about Gatsby and the second half talking about Macbeth. Pretty straightforward, huh? What type of things would you talk about? Well, in terms of compare and contrast essays, you're looking at similarities and differences between the two texts. So you may touch base on how both of them are tragic heroes in their own way. And that could be paragraph 2 and paragraph 4, talking about their similarities. Then with paragraph 3 and 5, what you could do is point out some differences. Gatsby ultimately undergoes a downfall because of his naivety. And I know I've written paranoia there. I'm so sorry, I got confused between the two texts. So try not to do what I did where you accidentally switch up the two. Paranoia should be under Macbeth and naivety is under Gatsby. So this is what a block structure would look like. Now let's have a look at our second essay structure, which will be an alternating essay structure. I've left introduction and conclusion behind because they still exist in all of the three different types of essay structures. However, what we're doing now is we're alternating between the texts rather than placing them in chunks or blocks. So paragraph 2 is text 1, paragraph 3 text 2, paragraph 4 text 1, paragraph 5 text 2. Now, text 1 is Great Gatsby and text 2 is Macbeth. So what you'll do is instead of spending the first half of your essay on one text and the second part of your essay on another text, you'll be spending the first part of your essay looking at similarities and the second part looking at differences. So when you look at similarities, you can point out how they're both tragic heroes, but with their differences, you can talk about how their downfalls were attributed to different reasons. And this, my friends, is an alternating structure. By the way, if you like what I'm doing here with this whiteboard and having this voiceover, then please give me a thumbs up so that I know I should be doing more videos like this. Let's move into essay structure number 3, the last and final one, an integrated structure, or you can know it as a side-by-side analysis. So as usual, I've left introduction and conclusion there because that's still relatively the same. But for paragraphs 2, 3, and 4, what you'll find is that you'll be writing about both text 1 and text 2 at the same time. So you can see here how it starts to get a little bit more advanced because you have to deal with both texts at the same time. So like before, how I mentioned that you would focus your first part of the essay on a block, so either a certain text, or alternating, so on a similarity or a difference. Now what we're doing is, because we're talking about them both at the same time, we can base these paragraphs on certain themes that overlap, and then point out the similarities and differences between the themes that we are analysing. So G stands for Great Gatsby, M for Macbeth, S for similarity, and D for differences. As you can see, it is definitely a more complex way of going about things. However, this essay structure often offers a lot more in-depth analysis of the two texts. So that is an introduction to different types of essay structures. Would you like me to explain more in detail? If you do, then comment below. Let me know what your
If you're a college student, keep watching. One of my least favorite things about writing papers in college was remembering the correct format for my citations. In high school, I used
Hi everyone, we're going to talk about compare-contrast writing in this video, and I'm going to give you some tips on how to get ideas, how to organize those ideas, and how to connect those ideas for writing about comparisons or contrasts or both. It's a mode that we use all the time when we're speaking, when we want to convince people of things, and we also use it in academic writing all the time. You may or may not be aware, but you're probably already using it. So let's just make sure that you're doing it in a way that can help you convince people that you're right, even if you're not, because isn't that what writing's all about sometimes, is we're convincing people using really strong arguments to argue our opinion. Compare means look at similarities. Contrast means look at differences. Now, you can look at only similarities. You can write a comparison paper where you just focus on similarities in your paper. Or you can just focus on contrasting, looking at differences. Or you can do both. It's up to you. Most of the time, it's up to you, but you really want to make sure you know what you're going to write about and what you want to say. I always like to talk about things that I'm familiar with, so I'm going to talk about running and swimming, okay? So let's just look at those two sports. My whole reason why I want to compare the two or contrast them is because I want to convince people that I think, even though I love swimming, I want to convince people that running's a better option. I can't just say running's better. They're going to be like, why? Why is it better? What? And then I have to have a reason. And if I haven't thought about it, I'm not going to have a reason. If I've thought about it, I would have come up with some ways to compare the two or contrast the two in ways that shows that running is advantageous. So let's talk about how to do that. I always recommend using a Venn diagram. You put the two things you're going to be writing about, and they need to have some sort of similarity, okay, from the beginning. Running and swimming are both sports, okay? So it makes sense that we can compare them. If I put running and markers, that wouldn't really make a lot of sense. So make sure from the beginning you're writing about things that already have a point of comparison, that are already somehow within the same realm, okay? All right, then you draw two circles around it. In the middle, this is where there are similarities. Here's where there's differences. So now you have to think. Okay, I thought for a while, I came up with some things that I think are different about them. Running is social. You can run and talk with people, but you can get lots of injuries from running. It's easy to access. You just have to find a place to run and maybe have shoes, but a lot of people run without shoes, so you don't really even need to access expensive shoes. And stress relief. That's what I thought of. Over here for swimming, I pointed out that it's more solitary. Even if you do it with a team, you got your head in the water the whole time. You're not really talking to anyone. It's harder to access because you have to find water. Where do you find water? Pools or oceans or rivers or lakes, but that's hard. That's not easy to find sometimes. Equipment, you need a lot of equipment. You need to have expensive suit, you need to have expensive goggles and cap and all these different things. But the great thing about it is that you don't really get injured with swimming because you're in water. And it's stressful. I mean, I put that. I think it's stressful just because when I'm swimming, since I'm not talking to people, I'm thinking about a million things and I'm not focusing on swimming. I'm just thinking. So it's stressful for me. All right, now what about similarities? Okay, so I kind of got some ideas for similarities, but not a lot. Maybe I can think of more. Maybe I won't. Maybe I just can say more about the differences. I only came up with that they both have health benefits and that they both allow the people to make friends. Because even with swimming, you can make friends if you're on a team. Okay, so at this point now I say, okay, I still want to point out that I think running is a better option. So how am I going to do that? I have a lot more to say about the differences between these sports. So I'm going to focus on the differences. I'm not even going to look at the similarities. Let's take that out. But because I'm going to write a 5-paragraph essay, 3 is a good number. 3 body paragraphs in the body of that 5-paragraph essay. That's a great place, 3. So you want to find 3 things that you can talk about. And I say, look for 3 points of comparison, even if you're not comparing. But you need 3 points of comparison. So let's look at these again and see if we can find a connection. So running is social. Swimming is solitary. There we go. That is a similarity there. I mean, it's a difference. They're different, but we're talking about the same point, which is whether you do it with people or you do it alone. So I'm going to point this one out over here, and I'm going to say that it's, so I point out between these two, I'm just going to call it social right now. I can think about what I want to call it later. Injuries. Oh, no injuries. Okay, so I'm going to call that one the physical. I don't know what yet, physical something, but I got it. Okay. Easy to access, hard to access. Okay, so this one I can call access. Okay. Over here, stress relief, stressful. Okay, so I could focus. I can make a 4th point. Okay, stress. So let's take a look at the points of comparison that I pulled out from my brainstorm. I have social, physical, access, and stress. I really want to focus on just 3 of those. So what I'm going to do is, I think I can say more about these 3 than this. I'm just going to focus on these 3 for my paper. So to be honest, I've been thinking about this a little bit and I actually changed my mind. I'm not going to focus on the physical. I'm going to focus on equipment. I think I can say a lot about that, and I'm going to add it to this point as well. You'll see my paper. Okay, so I pulled out those 3 points of comparison that I want to focus on for building my argument in this paper, and those are social, access, equipment. I'm going to say a lot more about them later. I don't need to figure out exactly how to write them right now. I'm just trying to get the ideas clear in my head, okay? And a point you should know is that you can organize these however you want in your paper. I always suggest that the writer choose which one they think is the most impactful, most important, and put it last. Because I always like to say, save the best for last, because that's the last point the reader's going to read, and that's the last chance you get to convince them. Okay, so there's 2 ways that you can organize your compare-contrast paper. If you're writing a compare-contrast paper where the whole thing is a compare-contrast paper, then there is a specific structure I'm going to point out. But I do want to say that you could write a paper where you just include 1 paragraph or even 1 sentence that uses compare-contrast kind of structure. What I'm going to show you in this video though is just the 2 main patterns that we use for this type of mode, okay? So the first one, and my favorite, is point by point. It's called point by point. So that just means you are going to go in the body of your paper, you're going to go point by point, okay? So let me just back up. First, of course, you want to have your intro paragraph in your essay. And at the end, you want to have your conclusion paragraph, okay? And if you need to review those things, I do have videos on those, but I'm focusing on the body right here, the pattern that we're going to use in the body, okay? So inside the body of an essay, you can have as many paragraphs as you want. I'm just going to focus on the 3 body paragraphs for a 5-paragraph essay. Now, inside of one, so you would have, it would be like this, 3 body paragraphs. Now let's focus in on what one of those would look like. So what I'm going to do in the first one is I'm going to focus on the first point, okay? And it could be any of these, but let's say it's social, the social benefits, okay? So we'll want to focus on the social benefits. The second body paragraph, I'm going to focus on access, okay? And in the third one, I want to focus on the equipment. What are you going to do inside the body of each of those paragraphs? Well, what you're going to do is you're going to compare or you're going to contrast. What are you going to compare or contrast? Well, you're going to compare or contrast the 2 things you're writing about. In this case, I'm writing about swimming and running. So in the first body paragraph, I'm going to focus on the social benefits of swimming and the social benefits of running. I'm going to compare them or I'm going to contrast them. You'll see in my paper what I do. It's up to you what you want to do. Access. What am I going to be talking about in that paragraph? I'm going to be comparing or contrasting swimming and running. But I'm going to focus on access to the sport. And then finally, equipment. I'm going to focus on swimming and running only, and comparing or contrasting the type of equipment needed for those sports. Okay, so that's how you do point by point. Okay, that's just an outline. So the other type is the block method. So again, you want to have intro paragraph, you want to have a conclusion paragraph, but in the middle you're going to have the body. And in the body of a compare contrast paper, you're going to have blocks like this. It's really 2 main blocks. The first block is focusing on the first thing you're talking about, which is swimming. Okay? And the second block is talking about running. So you're only talking about swimming in this paragraph, and you're only talking about running in this paragraph. But don't forget, you've got to focus on those points of comparison in this one and in this one. You got to make sure you discuss the same things, otherwise you're not really comparing or contrasting. So in here, you're going to focus on the social, the access. In this one, you're going to focus on social, access, and equipment.
How did everyone suddenly get so good at writing? WordTune. It's your writing.
And in this one, you're going to focus on social access and equipment. So really, you only have 2 body paragraphs, but that's not true. I think it's a good idea to add a 3rd body paragraph, sort of where you give a recommendation. You could add another paragraph where you give some sort of like evaluation or a recommendation of which one you would recommend, and then your conclusion. Okay, so let's see this in action on an essay. Okay, everyone, here we are now looking at the sample paper. I'm going to just go down here, scroll down. You can find this below. There's a point-by-point pattern here, and then the block method, which I just wrote on the board. Okay, so you can see both of those patterns there. This is only for the body of the paper. And then I have a sample paper right here. It's a simple, basic 5-paragraph essay. First person is used as support. There's no like outside sources or research being done, you know, to bring in any other support or analysis. But I think this is a great intro to compare contrast writing, so you can see the pattern. Okay. Now in this one, where I'll just tell you, I'm using the point by point pattern, okay? And the focus really is on contrasting these 2 things that I'm going to write about. Okay, so here it is. It's called The Miles Changed Me. I used to think swimming was the best way to get exercise, but after the closure of the local pool in my hometown, I was introduced to running. Miles and miles later, I found myself trying to convince people to run with me. The dollars that I saved in buying less expensive equipment, the ease of accessing running trails, and the great deal of social connections I made with people I ran with have all changed my mind. Running is indeed a better option for working out than swimming. Now, obviously, this is a person's opinion. This is not a fact, okay? And that is great. You want to develop your argument and convince people to believe you, right? Okay, so here I'm just going to highlight the thesis, okay? Don't forget there's a hook, so it's kind of like a little anecdote, and then a little transition here, and then the thesis. The thesis is running's a better option than swimming. Okay, here we go. Here's the body. Due to the many challenges that people face in finding the time and motivation to put toward exercising, ease of access is an important factor in choosing a workout. And because running is so much easier to do than swimming, it is a better option. I'm going to highlight this and make it yellow as well, because that is the topic sentence of this paragraph. It's basically saying that running is easier to access than swimming. So it's a better option. Firstly, to swim, people have to find water within which to swim. Finding water can be easy to do if people have access to a pool or a lake nearby, but for most people, this is not the case. Meanwhile, I'm going to highlight this word because this is one of those compare-contrast words that you want to use when you're comparing and contrasting. This word shows contrast. Meanwhile, so I was talking about swimming. Now I'm going to talk about running. So swimming's hard to access. Meanwhile, to get a running workout in, people simply have to find a place to run. A lot of the time, this might just mean taking a step outside of one's house and starting. And although there are places that are not ideal for running, like busy city streets, most outdoor surfaces, such as sidewalks, trails, or open fields, work quite well for a good run. Additionally, running is easier to access because it doesn't involve any shock factor to start it. To be specific, swimming requires the participants to go from being outside to submerging their bodies into water. The immediate shock of jumping into the water, which is usually cold initially, is very unpleasant, believe me. Whereas with running, the only real shock involved is going from standing to running. For these reasons, people are more motivated to run than go swimming. All right, now, those probably aren't the most convincing reasons, but it works. I mean, it follows the pattern. I'm saying swimming is harder to access than running, therefore running's better. Okay, and the first point I'm making is that running is easier to access because you just have to step outside, whereas swimming you have to find water. So that's the first point, okay? And then over here I say additionally, okay, it's easier because there's no shock factor. So I have 2 points, okay? The first one is here, I'm going to make it blue, and the second one is here, I'm going to make it blue. I want to point out that inside the body of your paragraph, right, you want to, yes, you're focusing on the point of comparison, which is access, and you're going to talk about swimming and you're going to talk about running, but within that you're talking about access to swimming, access to running, and then you're talking about the shock of entering a pool and the shock of starting to run from standing. So I want you to see the pattern here where it's, okay, I'm going to highlight it to make it more clear. Swimming is pink, okay? And then running is red, okay? Running is red, okay? And swimming is pink. I just want you to see the colors because I want you to see that you're talking about swimming and you're talking about running, but you're focusing on that point, which is accessing it. Over here, we're talking about swimming and we're talking about running, but we're focusing on the shock factor, okay? And when we transition to swimming, running, or running, swimming, we're using a contrast word, okay? Most of the time. It's not always there, okay? In this because that is the point. That's the topic sentence. Now we're going to focus on the equipment that you need for these sports, and how and I'm going to argue here that because the running equipment is cheaper and just easier to get and there's less of it, it's better. Okay. Even though I don't really believe, I actually really love swimming. I'm just trying to give you an example. All right, so here's my first point in that paragraph. Swimming requires a bathing suit, a cap, goggles, and a towel, and flip-flops to wear after getting out of the water. Okay, here's my first point. So with my first point, I'm making it, my point is gonna be blue, right? Competitive swimsuits are necessary for doing swim workouts because they do, competitive swimsuits are necessary for doing swim workouts because they do not create drag in the water or come off the swimmer's body when diving in. These suits are very expensive, starting at $100. And because of the chlorine in pools, these suits deteriorate very quickly, requiring the swimmer to spend a great deal of money on them. Here's my all of the details and the support, what I want to say about swimsuits, okay? And that equipment. Goggles are also very pricey because they're quite technical. Okay, so this whole thing, this is all support for the gear, the equipment needed for swimming. In contrast, here I'm gonna make that green, that's that transition word. I'm contrasting to running. Running can be done with minimal equipment. Although a good pair of running shoes may be the most important piece of equipment for a runner, there are many runners that do not even wear them due in part to the barefoot running trend. If a person does choose to use running shoes, expensive ones do not have to be used. Other than that, a sports bra, a shirt, and some shorts are the only other pieces of clothing one needs. And these pieces could be used for years and years without deterioration. So you can see this paragraph is a little bit different. I just really kind of focused on the gear, and I just talked about swimming first, okay? So I'm gonna make swimming, right? I'm gonna make swimming pink. And then over here I contrasted and I just focused on running, okay? Gear, that's what I'm talking about. Last body paragraph, finally. And I put this one last because I think it's the most impactful, it's the most important reason. The social benefits of running outweigh those of swimming benefits. Now, I didn't really transition. I could do that better. There.
Just wanted to confirm, when I do other work, guys, are you able to continue following up with the video tutorial?
Yes.
Have you been able to follow up? Because what is the lady mentioning is exactly what I want to highlight. And this is exactly the use of colors for the connectives, the joining words, when you use this format of compare and contrast. So this is exactly what I expect you to present when we go to the units of literature. So there is only, I think, half a minute left or so. So you will continue having a look at that. And then we'll move on to argumentative essay. I'm not going to show you a video about it. It's only like, you know, a few tips. And then you will be doing an assignment, writing an argumentative essay. Okay. So I'm sorry that you can see the other screen too, but again, no worries about it. Okay. We'll continue the remaining piece, which is very little.
There's also a chance for swimmers to talk before and after the workout, but most people are busy and have to rush to the next activity. On the other hand, making that green, that's our transition. On the other hand, running doesn't require the participants to put their heads in water so they can actually talk. Second, because runners, especially endurance runners, train by themselves at a steady space for miles and miles, they can hold a conversation comfortably for a long period of time. As a result of talking to someone else uninterrupted for such a long time, running partners tend to find that they have common interests. For example, I met a new running buddy only a few months ago, but because I got to spend so much time talking to her, I found out that we both like cooking. So now we share recipes with each other weekly. Without the chance to talk like we do while running, we wouldn't have been able to become such good friends. Okay, so here, I got the first point, which is just that focusing on swimming, swim workouts. Swim workouts are swim workouts, you can't talk. On the other hand, running, make that red, you can talk. Okay, and then giving support. And as you can see in this one, I'm actually giving a specific personal first-person experience example to change it up and make it more specific. Okay, conclusion. In the end, these two forms of exercise are advantageous in so many ways, but if there's going to be a clear winner, running wins the gold medal. If it offers more social benefits, it's easier to access and requires much more affordable equipment. The next time you want to convince yourself to get in a workout, please remember these points. Okay, and finally.
So this is exactly, I consider her she gave you the exact tips that I would have given you. I will help you recall all the most important structure tips on a Word document, but you are going to dictate to me what are the most important pieces that we should never forget or ignore, and we should keep while having an compare and contrast essay. This is one thing. The other thing is, let me ask you, do you think it differs how you structure your essay? What are the most important and essential points in your compare and contrast essay? Who can tell me? What can you tell me about the body? Let me have it in a big font here. What can you tell me about the body? This is what we need to care for. If I am comparing between A and B, it doesn't matter what is A and B. In the example she gave you running and swimming. In the coming exams, you will have probably the hero in the short story A and the heroine in short story B. Then you need to compare and contrast something about it. It doesn't matter what, but what I care for is the way you organize your paragraphs and essay. Now, when you are talking about one topic here, you need to mention the main sentence, okay? Then, beside the main sentence, you need to give me enough details. Those details could be, let me tell you, could be an example, a proof, or a scientific research, or critic's opinion, or even your own opinion, all right? So this is how you are going to write about each point. S here, this one means a sentence, all right? The main sentence. Like if you're comparing the revenge theme in the play The Tempest and in the play of Macbeth, for example. Or Hamlet. I think Hamlet has more powerful revenge theme rather than Macbeth. Yes, we do have it in Macbeth, but in Hamlet is stronger. So you will be talking about the revenge theme in one play and then the other one, or you put them in interwoven together as she showed you. For me, I'm just telling you, it doesn't matter which structure you are going to use. Is it like one point and then you move to the next one, or you weave them together in one paragraph? I don't care. I care only for mentioning the points and the aspects in each one. Another thing that I care for is the using of connectives. Like, remember when she highlighted with the red color and the green color, the red color, she used it to show you that the two things you are comparing and contrasting are mentioned in every paragraph. Okay. And for the other one, the green color, she used it to show you the connectives. Those words, the connectives, what we call the words that give cohesion to your essay. Your essay would be meaningless without having those connectives. If you are comparing, contrasting, of course, you're going to use on the other hand, whereas, despite, whatever, while something, the other thing is, and so on. So let me know if you are okay with these. If you are not okay, I can definitely share with you some grammatical points. Are you okay with using connectives?
Yes.
Okay, Yusuf is okay. How about Rana and Safa?
Yes.
Are you familiar with using connectives? Like if you are explaining, or if you are comparing and giving, disputing points of view, any of those, are you okay with them?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, so I expected to see this in your essays. Just to secure high marks, you need to use those, okay? All right, so I wanted to share with you, you probably seen me taking some simple statements for the topics we will be discussing now, which is argumentative essay. You also are going to be exposed to argumentative essays where you have to stick aside to stand with one point of view. Okay, if I tell you, for example, let's take the same example we used last class. We used the summer and winter and which season you prefer and so on. Let's say I have two teams here saying summer is better and the other team is saying winter is better. For me, let's say I am a summer advocate. My standpoint will show from the beginning. I will be talking about this point. I'll be defending this point, explaining my arguments, and so on. However, you also must mention the opposing point of view. I am not telling you you are going to take the side of those opposing, like you are not going to, give more details about it, but you would say the other party or the other team or the other argument believe that winter is better because of so. You might have it in a very short paragraph, whereas the majority of your essay will be defending your point of view. You will see that in a minute. That will be your task. You will write it and you will take side, as well as also mentioning the point of view of the others. Okay, so this is the website where we get the scholar articles related to how to write for university level and high school presentations, and of course essay writing. So simply we can say that the argumentative writing is a type of writing that requires the student, which is you, to investigate the topic. Now you need to make sure that you know the topic. How you are 100% sure about it, you need to go online and search and get some ideas, or how you are defending this character, or how you are writing that this character should be the most protagonist in the play, or antagonist. The protagonist is the main character, the hero, the let's say the ideal person that might other people follow as an ideal. Why? You have to tell me that. So you have to read. Probably you can get some views from critics. It's okay to mention that the critics mentioned that this character has been presented in this way to convince the audience, this and this and this. So you give me evidence. You also need to collect the information, and you have to prove your point of view, to generate and evaluate evidence and establish a position on the topic in a concise manner. So when you cite or when you take a certain point of view, you need to show me the argument. Why do you believe this opinion is the correct one? Why do you believe this opinion is the best one? Get the good argument. So the argumentative essays typically include an explanation of the writer's position, which is in this case you. You need to explain that I believe that so and so is so and so. And the evidence is, and you can state your evidences. As you can see, all of that should be presented in the thesis. Last time we talked about the thesis, which is like coming in the introduction. The introduction will be moving from the general, moving to the thesis, where you let me know where you stand. Evidence supporting thesis and opposing points of view. Also, you need to talk about the opposing point of view, but you are not going to give it in details because you stand with, let's say, opinion A. Opinion B must be mentioned, but maybe you don't have to mention it in details, but you can think about the arguments the other team is mentioning. And rebuttals, and of course you need to reply to those positions. Now let's talk about the parts of the argumentative essay. All essays would be the same with introduction, where you have to mention the thesis, and we learned last time how to make it attention grabbing and how to get the hook from the beginning. And then the thesis statement, where you need to be like concise and to the point and show me the summary. What am I going to read about? From the very first beginning, I know that this person is going to take this point of view, okay? Supporting paragraphs, as I mentioned, as I showed you in the working sheet when we discussed each point, each paragraph has one topic, one idea, and supporting details. Those details could be examples or could be findings of research or any saying from other critics. Now, this is how it will look like. This is, I need when I'm correcting your essays, I need to feel this structure. I need to see that you write the introduction in a few lines, and then you move on to the next paragraph with the supporting idea, and then the second and the third. Each one has a different topic or supporting idea with details. And look at the counter argument, how little it is, as you can see. So only one paragraph, when you mention the opposing argument, you show that you have knowledge about this also, and you respect the other people who differ from your point of view. This is how you need to present your essays, and this is how you need to, even for university and so on. So this is when you mention the counter argument, and this is the conclusion. In the conclusion, you need to summarize your point of view. Again, you focus on your point of view because the majority of the paper is about this one. And then you restate your thesis using different wording. So it's almost similar to the intro, but it is not copy-paste. Please pay attention to this. So it's going to be similar to this, but you play around with the words, not to have it exactly as is. When you wrap up the essay, you wrap it nicely, mentioning the alternative point of view, but you are standing with this point because so and so and so. So give you here some examples. I don't want you to have like too many activities to do. I'm going to give you a break. Short one until 6 o'clock. It's 10 minutes. When you come back, there will be an assignment, essay writing, argumentative essay writing. Do you have any questions, anyone?
No.
Perfect. Then see you at exactly 6 on Google Classroom.